Good evening, everybody. Today we have Shiva with us. Shiva is one of the most interesting technology people I have met. I think it might not be wrong if I say Shiva is one of the best tech guys I have met. Uh, like one of the things which I was passionate about from the start of my career is something called software craftsmanship. And another important thing, I mean, a very big part of craftsmanship is building high quality applications. And that's a passion I really share with Shiva. And that's a passion I see reflect in his tweets, in his blogs, and the 3 books he wrote. Shiva, welcome.
Thanks, Ranga. Thanks for the introduction and thanks for inviting me to this live show. Yeah, it's a pleasure talking to you after a long time. Yeah.
Absolutely, Shiva. Shiva, like for people who are not familiar with you, I know
Yeah.
there are a lot of things you can talk about, but probably do you want to talk about a little bit about the books you wrote and probably what are your interests right now? What are the areas you are focusing on right now?
Sure. Yeah. My name is Siva, and I am currently working as a software developer in Hyderabad, India, in a startup called Everest Engineering. I have started my career in a small company in Hyderabad, and then I worked in various other organizations like ThoughtWorks, and I worked at N26 in Germany, and then I worked in few other organizations like JP Morgan Chase. So I have worked at various types of companies like startups and big corporates and various types of companies. So apart from my regular job, I also do blogging on sivalabs.in, where I mostly write about my learnings on Java, Spring Boot, and recently on Kubernetes. And recently, my interests are mostly towards operations side, where DevOps stuff and then monitoring. These are the areas that I'm getting more and more interested recently. And in addition to that, I have written a few books. I have written 2 books on Spring Boot, and before that, I wrote one book on prime faces and another book on MyBatis, which is ORM library. Yeah, that's about me.
Cool, Shiva. That's wonderful to hear. Shiva, for folks listening to us, I have included links to shivalabs.in. I've included link to Shiva's Twitter profile, as well as I have included link to his LinkedIn profile in the description of the video. So you can you can probably tweet to him and you can reach out to him. Like I think I think he's one of the real good experts if you want to talk about anything related to software craftsmanship. So I think uh, that's what we would want to focus on to start with. Uh, Shiva, like if somebody wants to become a software craftsman today, right? So a lot of programmers want to become like if you look at the career paths that typically a programmer can choose from, right? So typically you have architect path, you have the uh, program, I mean project, I mean the management path, if I can put it that way, and you also have the
Mhm.
software craftsmanship path, right? So
Yeah.
it's more the next level programmer kind of, right? So how do you
Mhm.
explain software craftsmanship, and how what would your advice be to somebody who wants to start on a software craftsmanship?
So, when you start your career, some people go into architect path where they excel in the software development side of things, and then get better at various programming languages and then tools and libraries. And if they are really passionate and want to go in that path where they want to become software architect, that's one option. And some people, they are really good at managing people and then organizing things, and then because when you say software development, it's not all about coding. In fact, I would say that's a small portion of the overall process. There are a lot of things to take care on the software development in addition to coding. And some people are really gifted, like they know how to talk to people, how to resolve the conflicts, and how to handle difficult situations. So if you are good at some aspect of it, it is absolutely go either into management path or architect path. It is, there is no hard and fast rule like, okay, if you have these three qualities, you should definitely go into this path. Whereas even I see people, they are switching between the two paths. Uh, some people, they became architect, they work for several years, and then they switch to management path. They work there as a manager, engineering manager, and then they work there for some years, and then again they switch back to development mode. So it's basically you need to understand what you are really good at and what becomes a pleasure to you. Like some people, they really like coding, they really feel so much passionate about coding. So if that is the case with you, maybe going in the architect path is the right path. And if you are like you know how to deal with the people, and you know how to organize things and how to deliver projects, so probably you can try out the managerial path. One interesting thing is, as a junior developer, I'm guilty of saying this, but many of us hate managers, right? When you talk about manager, we put face like this and then say, "Oh, I don't want to become a manager," and things like that.
Absolutely.
But even when you are in a software architect path or whatever, once you become a senior developer or even architect or tech lead, and then if you have to take care of kind of ownership as a delivery person, you are the primary contact, then you start realizing that it's not all about coding. There are a lot of things you need to talk to stakeholders. You need to convey
Absolutely.
a few things, priorities, business priorities with the team members. So then you start realizing that doing the manager role is not as simple as we thought. It is even much more challenging than being a developer. In fact,
Yeah.
there are people who went into manager path and then they came back saying that writing code is far easier than managing people. So both are really important aspects of whole software development.
Absolutely.
But I also need to say, uh, like as a developer, there is a limit how far you can go. Like you learn all the programming languages, you learn all the techniques and everything. But as an individual contributor, you can contribute to some extent only. Beyond that, what you can do is you train others. You cannot multifold, like there is no 10x developer, I would say. There is no such thing. You can go so far by yourself. After that, you have to educate others. You have to become a mentor for others. That's how you can manifold the productivity. You cannot all by yourself do great many miracles. Uh, that's what I would feel.
Exactly. I think the concept of 10x programmers, um, like especially in service industries, is debatable, right? So in like like in product companies, probably you can see the value of a 10x programmer, but in the service companies, I doubt if like 10x programmers are valued so much. That's where I think it's very very important that if you want to remain on the programming side, you have to get into training others or like getting little bit of ownership of the architecture design, right? So
Yeah,
I mean, I think that's one of the challenges that service industries typically have, right? So you cannot be a
yeah,
programmer for, I mean, you might be really really good at programming, you might be an expert there, but you cannot survive just as a programmer for a long time. And that's where
yeah,
that's one of the places where I love like the software craftsmanships, because I think in the last few years, or I would say in the last decade or so, uh, there is a lot of shift towards hands-on architects. And
hmm.
as I think like software craftsmanship kinds of crystallizes that, right? So you are uh, expected to be hands-on, and you are expected to know have good knowledge of design and architecture. So I think it's kind of a mix of all that. What do you say, Shiva?
Yeah. When it comes to being a hands-on architect, I would recall one of the session I got from my mentor. One day, one of my senior member called me and said, "You already know Spring Boot, and you have already written several applications, and you know all this typical controller service repository, and you have done it 100 times. And even if you give one more time, you would do it. You know already. So there is no benefit of using your expertise to write one more time the same thing you know already. So what you need to do as a tech lead or as an architect, you need to educate others so that they become more productive like you. So that's where your value add on be. It's not like you sit in a corner and then you write or draw diagrams. That's not going to help much. So I would think in that terms. As you grow, maybe you can become more productive, like you can do so much work, whereas two other people can do the same thing in, say, a certain time period. But that's not, there is a limit. You cannot go beyond that. You don't have
Right.
4 hands. You cannot type 10 times faster than anybody else. So you have to take a step back and then think and educate or mentor other team members, and then make them more productive. That's how you can become a craftsmanship. And as you work on, right, we get to see, say today some patterns looks really good in paper and in theory, and you apply them, and then you get to know after, say, down the line, a year or two, okay, no, this sounds really good in theory, but in practice there are a lot of challenges. That's where you gain the expertise. So that's what you need to share to the junior developers, and then say, okay, this is what we thought, it's going to be good, but these are the challenges we face. So that is the kind of knowledge you pass on. So I would say that is called software craftsmanship. It's not simply sitting in a corner and cranking out the code.
Exactly. So you are saying a very, very important part of being a software craftsman is sharing your expertise with others, right? So it's not just
Yeah,
about writing good software. It's also
yeah,
about helping others build good software as well.
right. Yeah.
Right. Cool.
Also, I always wonder when people say hands-on architect. I played the role of a tech lead, and I really find hard to find some time to code. Really,
Okay.
because there will be meetings with the business folks. We need to discuss the stories. We need to clarify certain tech aspects with the business folks, and then we need to convey the same and have a technical discussion with the team member. It's all like you will be a mediator between the business team and the tech team. And I really find it hard to have some time for myself to sit and then implement any user stories. So it is more
Okay.
like a, you provide the guidance, and then say there will be some critical parts where some core components you need to build. So you build them. You don't work on a day to day every user story or something like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's exactly how it would work, right? So definitely you would not be expected to code a use case like others, but I think, as you
Hmm.
say, the critical components or setting up
Right.
the initial archetype, or like
Right.
creating, I mean, or taking ownership of any complex challenges that come in. I think
Right.
that's where being hands-on really helps, right? So
Right.
yeah, like one thing I tried to do when, like, for a significant part of my career, I was a hands-on architect. And obviously, if you are in India working for a service company directly, it's very difficult to be an hands-on architect, because in addition to your own work, there might be 10
Hmm.
other people whose work you would need to review, right? But
Right.
I found it very easy when I was on the client side. So I worked from Netherlands, directly on the client side as a hands-on architect for almost 2 to 3 years, and that was pretty
Hmm.
easy, because I can say, okay, 50% of my work is architecture, 50% is being part of the team, and it was kind
Hmm.
of much more structured there, and therefore it was
Hmm.
much more easier to be a hands-on architect. But I completely agree,
Hmm.
it's not a easy thing to be able to
Hmm.
do both of the things together if there is no structure in how things
Yeah.
are organized.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
again, it depends on how mature the team is and how structured the overall software delivery process is. And again, it depends on whether it is the first time you are leading a team, because the first time being a tech lead is the toughest part.
Absolutely.
On one
Yeah.
side, your primary role is kind of a mentoring, and then looking after whether the things are going smooth or not. Deep inside, the developer in you, oh, I'm not writing any code, which means I'm not doing anything. So that thought won't go away so easily. So yeah, we need to fight it out, and then yeah, the first being a first time tech lead, that's the really hard part. Uh,
Yeah, I
yeah.
think being tech lead is, I think, the first step after like a senior programmer, right? So you become a programmer, senior
Hmm.
programmer, a tech lead, and probably that's the
Hmm.
first time you are responsible for more than just your code. So I think that would
Yeah.
be, yeah, that would be a very interesting step for a lot of people.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, when you are a senior developer, it's like you get some task, even if it is a complex one, it's all in your control.
Exactly.
You could complete it in an hour or in 2 hours. Even if you give a wrong estimate, you can stretch out and then you can complete. It's completely in your hands. But when you are a tech lead, you have to trust the team and then you have to help them, but it is not you who have to complete the task. It is the team members. So that is the first time you don't have a control, but you are a responsible person. So that's
Right,
the
and
challenging
also you are
part.
responsible for ensuring that the entire team is productive, right? So you need to ensure that probably the right tools are being made use of, continuous integration, continuous delivery, probably
Exactly.
even deployment, like making sure
Yeah.
that there is communication throughout, right? So all those things
Right.
become a very, very important responsibilities as you start growing up. It's not just your code, but how you deploy it, like is everything
Hmm.
efficient?
Yeah. It is
Cool,
not
cool.
anymore a silo or only the story you are working on. It is the whole system.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So, Shiva, talking about software craftsmanship, right? When we talk about software craftsmanship, obviously all the things that we have talked about are one part. There is also the part of being an expert at design, right? I mean, especially let's focus on low level design, right? So things like 4 principles of simple design or solid principles, or like how can you keep your design simple? What are your views regarding that?
So, over the time, what I have seen some pattern is either people read about the solid patterns and then they try to go and apply everything they learn. That's where over engineering happens. On
Exactly.
the other hand, on the other hand, I what how I learn is um, first, there are few aspects of it. First, how your users are going to use your application. That is the primary thing you should focus on. And then accordingly, you need to come up with the design that is most suited for the most usage scenarios. There will be some odd scenarios where once in a while some person can be using the system that you are building in a different way, but that should not be the optimized architecture for the whole application. So you should design in a such a way that that is the part that is going to serve most of the audience. After that, how you structure your data, that is more again, it depends on the type of the application. Is it a read heavy, is it a write heavy? There will be only few reads but too many reads. So accordingly you come up with storage. Okay, should I go with rdbms, should I choose NoSQL? So that is another part of it. And then again, is it like you are going to get too much of data, or is it going to be there will be minimal data but there are too many hits? So accordingly those patterns you again come up with the architecture overall, like how many replicas you need to run, and how do you put in caching so that it is faster. So all these aspects, obviously we won't be learning all this at once sitting here reading about any solid principles, or you learn all these things over the years. You work on some application, you read and you apply it, and then you see something works, some doesn't. In certain concept, certain type of applications, some things you read and in theory that looks great doesn't work. So you will learn all those pros and cons. Then over the years, okay, you get a idea of, okay, for these kind of applications, this is the pattern we should follow. These are the problems. If you go with this structure, these are the problems we are going to face down the line after a year or so. So it's like you keep gathering a point by point over the years of experience. Uh,
Absolutely,
yes,
absolutely.
yeah.
And within a few years, the entire architecture changes, and you have to relearn the whole thing again.
Yeah, again, yeah. So we have so many patterns, so many architecture styles, and then there are loads of books that says, okay, you follow this pattern, that pattern, and then this microservices happen, and whatever you read about, don't repeat. All these tribe principles now are not applicable in certain concepts. Now,
Exactly,
it is fine. Repeating some code is fine if you are going with a microservice. So it all depends on the how your
exactly,
application is structured.
exactly. One of the things I really found very, very useful in irrespective of the architecture, right? So the code we write, it being readable, it being like you not
Mhm.
repeating the same concepts again and again in code. So if you have a change, you just need to make a change at one place. Like those
Mhm.
things I think are very, very important, right? When we talk about
Right.
low level design, because irrespective of any architecture, that keeps changing, right? So one day we'll say full stack, another day we will say microservices. Whatever the high level architecture is, the low level parts of code, how you name variables, how you name methods, how you name your classes, how you structure things at a low level, like how you make use of the object oriented concepts or the functional programming concepts, right? These things also play a very, very critical role, right? So
Yeah.
I feel like that's one another aspect of software craftsmanship where you are expected to be really, really good at those things, right?
Yeah, exactly. You brought up a very good point of readability. So when when we talk about software, uh, the common things that come up is readability, scalability, all kinds of abilities, right, and performance. But among all these things, I give more preference to readability
Absolutely.
because we have super computers now, we have so much of powerful hardware now, and then there are cloud. It is like it is more expensive to hire developers than buying more hardware. Now you need to invest more time in readability aspect of it because people come into project, work for some time, and then they leave. So in especially in enterprises, right, the more challenging is if the code is not readable or if there are no tests. That is where the struggle is. It is not about
Absolutely.
the performance. In fact, there is a constant feeling of okay, every application should be performant and all. I know performance is important, but for a large portion of the applications, it is not the performance that is the critical factor. It is the time to delivery.
Right.
Probably there are only certain amount of users, and your current hardware is perfectly capable of handling it. The key part is time to delivery. Business need is there, and you have to go quickly to deliver it. So you need to understand the things. Here in this situation, readability is at most important.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely. One of the
yeah.
things I really believe is you can make readable code performant, but you cannot make only performant
What?
code readable.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it's, I mean, especially if you don't have tests at all, then
Huh.
like I
Good
doubt if
luck.
you can do anything about it.
Good luck.
Yeah, it's been my experience as well. I've maintained a number of iffy kind of applications, and what I found was like most of them don't have unit tests. And whatever you want to do, I mean, you can put a lot of process around quality, bring in coding standards, bring in
Huh.
uh, like static analysis.
Yeah.
You do anything, nothing matters really. Nothing improves I mean, maybe you can improve how new features are built, but whatever existing code is there, I don't think it would be easy to like improve. And another thing is, right, uh, we write code maybe for 20% of our time, and most of the time if you are a programmer, you are reading code, right? So that's almost 70 to 80% of what we would be doing. You would be reading your own
Exactly.
code. Maybe after 6 months it's your own code.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have written a lot of crap code myself. But like reading code is, I think, a very, very important art. And as you start reading more code and as you understand the difficulties, I think with experience you learn the importance of readability.
Yeah. One thing I noticed is I work on applications, and after a while, if I don't get a feeling of okay, this can be written in a better way, which is an indication that okay, I learned something better. What
Exactly.
I have been doing might not be very optimized way of doing things, but I learn new things, and then this is a constant learning. And as you said, maintaining a code base which doesn't have any test, that is the biggest pain points. It's all like
Absolutely.
okay, you tweak it and then you hope for the best and then you deliver it, only to realize after a week or so okay, something else is broken, and you have no
Yeah,
clue because you cannot validate it.
absolutely.
So yeah.
And
And
there is
also
no
another
way you
thing
can
is
adding unit tests after the fact also is very, very tough, right? Because if things are
yeah.
tightly coupled, there is no way you can write a unit test. The best you can hope is probably some kind of a system test, automated one, or automated regression test. That's the best we can hope for. Sorry for interrupting you. Please
Yeah.
go ahead, Shiva.
No, yeah. Another interesting thing I noticed is earlier we all know TDD, right? But I was like, I write test, but not before it. But I write my actual code, and immediately, within just after a few seconds, I write my test. What is big deal? Because I'm writing, and immediately within a few seconds, I'm writing the test and then running it. But slowly, what I realized is sometimes we don't know where to stop. We write, okay, this piece of code, and then, okay, let me add this piece also. So you keep adding little by little, and then all the conditions, okay, I need to test this behavior, I need to test this also, and okay, these three cases. So all that to-do list, what are all the scenarios you need to test, keep adding to your brain over the time. Say
Absolutely.
if you keep writing the code for say 20 minutes, and then it is like oh, there is so much of things that I need to write tests for, and at times you forget, okay, you write
Exactly.
only for a certain portion of it. So in the recent years I started really practicing this TDD, where I at least even if I don't implement them, I just write the test and with a blank to do. Uh, I know, okay, these are the scenarios I need to test. So
Absolutely.
slowly I shifted this process of first writing the test, after that production code. That really takes down a lot of mental, what do you say? You need to keep so much of information mentally to understand, okay, what are the things you need to
Absolutely.
test. You need
Absolutely,
to switch
absolutely.
it.
I
Yeah.
think, yeah, test-driven development also improves your low-level design a lot, right? So you are
Hmm.
starting to think from the outside perspective, not really thinking about the specific code you are writing, but you are starting to think, okay, how should I design it? How should I call it? Right? So you're thinking
Hmm.
about the method names, the way you'd structure
Hmm.
the class before you write the code. So that
Hmm.
also brings in a little bit of discipline, and it kind of aids with the low level design. And obviously, like, one of the things which I love about test driven development is at some point in time your test has failed. Lot of
Hmm.
times the problem I see in most projects, I mean, some of the projects I worked with is, hey, what's the code coverage? Code coverage is
Hmm.
95%. Okay, I make a change in the code, does the test fail? No. Then what's the use of having a code coverage of 95%, right? So I mean, the
Uh,
code, like, the tests are there to
let
find
me.
defects.
Right, right. Yeah, let me share one of my experience, horrible experience. Like I was working with a client where usually they have this restriction of if you want to go to production, you should have a minimum 80% of code coverage.
Yes.
And the team is writing the test only for meeting that condition, not for actually testing the code and all. And one of the smart engineers, they found one Java library where if you point to a source code folder, and then you can generate whole bunch of tests.
Yeah,
What it does is it creates instances of all the classes and it calls all the methods and nothing.
absolutely.
That's it. And within a day, they have 100% code coverage. Within a day. Just before one day, they don't have a test at all. And within a day, they have 100% code coverage. And I was in shock. How come this
Yeah,
is possible? And then
yeah.
I dig into what exactly is there, and I was in shock. How? And then it is accepted and it moved on because somebody has a high priority to deploy, and then okay, we have that rule, right, we met it. Oh god,
Exactly.
it is worse than not having test. It is
No, I mean,
way worse
like, there
than
is a
not having
lot of
test.
I mean, I think this was very, very prevalent, like, early. I mean, around, I think, 2008, I was working on a project where, like, one of the tools that was suggested by, I mean, my management team or the leadership team was something. I don't want to name the product. Let's not name it, but it was a automation test generation framework, and that
Yeah,
does exactly what you're talking about, right? So I mean,
I think we are talking about the same tool. I think.
so it's like crazy, right? I mean, if you're generating the automation test, I mean, it's okay. I mean, if you're generating the structure, I mean, if you're using it to generate the structure, and you are saving a little bit of time, probably. But if you're using it, like, as the only way to write unit tests, then
Yeah.
God save the team. I mean, then you are defeating the entire purpose of why you are doing it, right? So it becomes like, a lot of times people talk about this, right? uh, your metrics become the target. If metrics become the target, then it,
Yeah.
it's, I mean, metrics are there as symptoms. Metrics are
Hmm.
not targets, right? So I mean, am I making the point? So it's like metrics are used to find out, okay, if something is going wrong. But once you make that the target, people find a way of uh, meeting that metric without actually really making the effort to do the right thing.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
those are the quality gates where thinking, okay, you approach it with a genuine code quality. It is not like,
exactly.
but at the ground level, it is like, okay, to go to production, you need to meet that criteria. Just do it
Exactly,
whatever it
exactly.
takes and then do it. Which is even worse than not having tests. Yeah.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. I completely agree. Madhusudan Bosle in chat is saying clean and clear code is better than clever code. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Readable code is
Yeah.
much more important than some clever logic you are writing. And he's
Yeah.
also saying code must be written for next person, not for computers. Absolutely, Madhusudan. That's very apt. Uh, you should write code first for other person, and only the next target is computer. You can improve performance of code, but you can never be able to improve readability of a code after somebody writes it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, readability is utmost important these days. And again, as people come in and go, and you need to maintain some consistency, some patterns, and it is not even that hard. Also, if you ask me, I know clean code is it's again perspective. Different people see it in a different way. But if you at
Right.
least follow certain bare minimum things, like you don't write a method with the 500 lines. Split it up,
Absolutely.
simple, few small
Absolutely.
methods, and then
Absolutely.
make put the names that makes another person understand what really going on. So even if you follow some basic principles, achieving readability is not that hard.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of having the right guidance at the initial stage. I think readability is something which should be very easy to achieve, right? Like
Yeah,
you are saying, like obviously we love to have discussions on what is right, what is wrong, whether it should be named
mhm.
this way, that way. That's okay. There would always be 5% of things which we agree to disagree on, right? That's
Yeah,
common. Whether you go to any design meeting, architecture meeting, obviously, uh, like whether you have 3 layers, 4 layers, you can discuss it
yeah,
for till the end of time. There is no right answer
yeah,
there. It's more of a 49
yeah. We
51 or 45 55 call, right? But
yeah
when it comes to read,
we are
please go ahead.
developers. We are supposed to have strong opinions and debate things forever. Yeah,
Absolutely. I mean, that's something which you cannot separate from us.
yeah,
Cool. Shiva, I think it was a very interesting conversation around software craftsmanship. Like I think the summary is, if anybody is listening out there, I think readability is very important. Making your code testable is very important. Writing good unit tests. I think these are the three things which make you a really good programmer. If you can focus on these things, I think rest of the things can follow very easily. You can
yeah.
add performance to code. I mean, give and take, performance is much more easy to add than tests or readability to your code.
Yeah, it is like if you can understand the code, then it is a much easier task to optimize it. Where
Absolutely.
it's a clever code and you cannot understand it, it is very hard to even making it more performant.
Okay. I think that's awesome discussion, Shiva. Let's shift our attention now to some of the things you're working on right now, right? So, like before the call, we were talking about DevOps, cloud, and you said that you are working on a few interesting things related to DevOps and cloud. Do you want to talk
Yeah,
about them?
sure, sure. So it's almost 15 years. I started my career as a developer. So earlier in the beginning days, it was like most of the times it is a uh, on-prem data centers deployment. It is not cloud. Cloud is something fancy back then. Only very few people were able to go to cloud and then they deploy. But now the situation is completely switched. Now, in the recent 6 7 years, I haven't worked on an application which is not deployed on cloud. By default, it is some cloud platform that we are going to deploy. And also, this DevOps thing came a long way. Like if you remember the old days where, okay, we plan for a production release, and then almost 3 4 teams join on the bridge call, and then there is an Excel sheet where you have 64 steps to follow, and you do some steps, and then let some other people verify it, and then give a thumbs up, and then you follow rest of the things. It is like a whole day thing. But now we are at a position where just we want to release the software to production, press a button. That is doing it. Everything is automated. We come a long way. And because of these changes, as developers, we also need to understand, if not become a master of it, at least we need to understand what's really going on. Maybe we can be fans of our programming, our frameworks and all, but in order to understand how this is going to be run in a production environment, we need to have at least decent understanding of how cloud works, how DevOps things is working. Now, if we look at this perspective, by default, these days, containerization is becoming a normal thing. Now, most of the applications are based on Docker and Kubernetes and all, and also this infrastructure as code. So even if you don't become master of these things, you should have a decent understanding so that you can build the application in that is suitable for those environments. Earlier, it was like a very static environments, right? You know, there are only four boxes where you are going to deploy your application. Now that is not how it is. There are containers that can come and go. There are pods that may get killed, and another pod may dynamically gets created. So you need to have that understanding so that you can
Exactly.
design your an application to accommodate all those circumstances. One second.
Absolutely. I think you are absolutely right, Shiva. I think the point you are trying to make is cloud, in a way, made DevOps really, really easy. Because
Yeah.
if everything was deployed in a data center, doing DevOps the same way would have been a little difficult. But now with cloud, because most of the cloud platforms provide a lot of managed services around DevOps, it becomes much more easier, and it becomes much more important for a programmer to understand what's going on, right? It's not just about writing code, but it's about understanding what's happening with it afterwards. Somebody's
Yeah.
containerizing it, you are doing
Yeah.
container orchestration, or uh, let's say a health check failed, you immediately terminate it, and you like it automatically happens. Nobody gets notified these days at all, right? So yeah, please
Yeah.
continue.
Yeah, exactly. We, as a developer, even though we are not directly managing the infrastructure, it is very much required to understand how things are going to be in production, so that you can design. Also, I am getting more and more interested in DevOps side of things recently. If you look at my blog, I started learning Kubernetes. Uh, I mean, 3 years ago, first time I heard about Kubernetes and I got excited and I played with it a bit. But I thought there are so many things that comes and go. We no need to jump onto the bandwagon for every new technology. So I thought, okay, if it becomes a real thing, then I can learn. But now
Okay.
I see even most of the organizations, they are switching on to Kubernetes-based deployment model.
Absolutely.
And I think, yeah, this is a must-have knowledge now.
Absolutely.
Even
Absolutely.
from the operations point of view, it is a huge win. I know maintaining Kubernetes cluster is a very hard thing, but
Exactly.
from the operations point of view, if you look at earlier, say there are Python applications, there are Java applications,
Exactly.
and the operations team, they should have at least some knowledge of how to run them in Java language, in
Right.
Python language, what softwares needs to be installed. Now all that is went away. Now you just throw them a container, a Docker image, and it is standardized process. On the
Exactly.
offside, they can simply standardize. You just give me a container, I'll take care of the rest of the things. I don't care about whether it's a Python application or Java application. So offside, it becomes a really standardized process now. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. I think that's containers play a huge role in standardizing everything, right? So once you
Yeah.
have a box, you don't care what's in the box, you just throw it wherever
Yeah.
you want to throw it into.
Yeah.
Cool, cool, cool. So yeah, I think Kubernetes, as Shiva is saying, I think it's a very, very important thing. And also, I think initially, kind of, I would say AWS and Azure were a little slow in like providing the right support around Kubernetes. I think the Azure Kubernetes service and also the like, what was it, Elastic Kubernetes, Elastic Service, EKS, right? Elastic Container
EKS.
Service for Kubernetes.
I
I
always
think,
get confused whether it is EKS or AKS. Which one is Azure? Which one is
yeah,
AWS?
AKS is Azure, EKS is
Hmm.
AWS. Like the one which I
AWS.
loved from the start was GKE. The Google Kubernetes
Hmm.
engine was awesome. I mean, like creating something, maintaining with GKE was very, very, very easy. I think even if I go back 3, 4 years, I think it was very easy. But I
Yeah.
think Azure and AWS were little slow. I think it's also a tactical thing because Kubernetes came from Google Cloud. But I
Hmm.
think right now, I think all the three cloud providers are doing an awesome job. And now we have Anthos. You can run Kubernetes across clouds as well. You can manage them using
Hmm.
Anthos. I think AWS also released a competitive product for that. I mean, AWS
Hmm.
Azure also have multi-cloud products to be able to run
Hmm.
Kubernetes clusters. So you can run your Kubernetes clusters partly on premises, partly in AWS, partly in Azure, partly in Google Cloud. And
Hmm.
yeah, I think that's the way a lot of enterprises are heading.
Hmm.
Cool.
Yeah, I am still at a single cloud stage. I am not at a multi-cloud expert or anything.
Okay, but I think like eventually, I mean, I think see, once you know one cloud very well, learning other clouds become very, very easy. It's just
Yeah.
cut, copy, probably make a few changes, paste.
Hmm.
As simple as
Yeah.
that, right? So it's the same, like irrespective of the cloud. But I think, yeah, I think all enterprises are also heading that way, right? So you'd see a number of enterprises starting to like. At least earlier, there was just one enterprise, one cloud. Any use case, put it to the same cloud. But now people are changing. Uh, at least that was my impression. Do you see any of that, Shiva?
Uh, yeah, with especially with Kubernetes, it is kind of a standardized. Like you write the manifest in the same fashion, and once you are having a cluster, whether it is on AWS or Azure, it doesn't really change how you deploy. It's like you have the same manifest that should work. If it is a certified Kubernetes cluster, that should work fine. But if it is like you went with the ECS or something like that, that's a proprietary way of AWS. If you went
Exactly.
with Azure specific way, that's a slightly different. But even then, it is I see it is very similar. Like
Absolutely.
terminology difference in AWS you call S3, in Azure you call something else with a name difference. And by and large, if you are good at one cloud platform, learning about the other one is not that difficult, it seems.
Absolutely. 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 So yeah. So if like there is anybody out there who has not yet started with cloud or DevOps, what would be your advice for them? Where do you want them to get started?
Okay, so okay, for DevOps and even in general for programming, this is my advice. If you want to get started with something, there are a lot of things. Even if you take, say, front-end programming, web development, or if it is a back-end development, or be it a DevOps, even if you pick any of this vertical, there are 100 million things to learn, but you won't be needing all those 100 million things, and you won't be using them in a day-to-day basis. You will probably use 20 things of it, and you might need only a subset of all that, so many things. So you figure out, okay, what I'm going to suppose. If you are looking for a DevOps engineer role, you need to do a little bit of research of what is the most used cloud platform. Is it AWS? Is it Azure or something? Okay, it's AWS. Then, okay, what are the commonly used services? Start with them. And then you don't have to learn their AWS 280 plus services, right? Nobody, I don't think anybody uses 200 services provided by Azure or AWS. Uh, for example, take me. I have been using AWS for almost 6, 7 years, and I have been using only 7 or 8 services only. Beyond that, I don't have a clue what others are doing. So you can narrow it down and then first become a good thing, good at those services. That would help you to get on a job, and then after that, based on the need and the project needs and all, you can learn other things. And if you want to start with this, suppose if you are completely newbie to DevOps world, how do you know that, okay, what needs to be learned, and am I learn sufficient enough? One approach is I would say go with a certification, because that's where the instructor will come up with the list of things that is being mostly used in most of the applications. And that's where you can, it's not like okay, you get a certification and now you can do miracles in AWS or Azure, but that will help you to get on board, and you will get to have an idea of overall, okay, this is how cloud operates, and these are the services that is providing these kind of facilities. Once you get a hang of it, and then you can dig deeper into okay, specific services. I think these certifications help to get on board, to get familiarized with the environments, and for experienced people also. Yeah, I would suggest pick up some certification, not because that is going to help you to do actual job, but you will get a overview of what is there and what you need to learn, all that
Absolutely.
aspects.
Absolutely. I think, Shiva, as you say, I'm not a big fan of certifications, right? So I think it's the same is the case with you.
Yeah.
And like, but I think one is like if you look at in 28 minutes, almost 90% of the last 10 courses that I think last 20 courses that we have created are all cloud certification courses, right? So AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, we have certification courses on all that. There are two reasons why I thought this was important. Number one, everybody wanted to do certifications, and I did not have any courses to create. So let's go and create certification courses, right? That's obviously one of the reasons. The other reason I felt was exactly like what you are saying right now. If you wanted, like, even if I worked with AWS for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, I would have used a certain part of AWS only, like maybe 5 services or 10 services. Obviously, you would use the common services like IAM and all that stuff you would make use of. But if you go deep, probably you are only making use of ECS, or you are making use of only EKS, but you have no knowledge about the other services which are present in AWS. You might know about a specific NoSQL database. Maybe you are good at DynamoDB, but you might not know all the other options that AWS provides. And I think that's one of the reasons why certification courses have a little bit of value when it comes to the cloud, right? So it
Yeah.
gives you wider perspective. Uh, like it gives you a lot of knowledge around a big picture level. So yeah, I think that's a very, very important thing, right? So
Yeah.
are you planning to do any certification, Shiva, or have
Yeah.
you done any?
That is an interesting question, because the last certification I have done is SCJP 12 years ago.
Same with me.
Yeah.
Before
So,
March last year, that was the only certification I had.
so interesting thing is, 4 months ago, I thought of getting AWS Solution Architect Associate certification. I have prepared for it, and I have did a lot of hands-on also. But
Okay.
the challenge for I didn't attempt, I didn't have the certification also. The challenge I faced is when I look at the pattern of this examination, it is more about how much you can remember. There are 200 services provided by AWS, and maybe you don't have to know 200 services, but still, it's a very huge list of services, around 60 plus or so. And
Exactly.
I know about my memory capability. I can remember my mobile number and my wife's mobile number. Beyond that, I have to rely upon my mobile storage. That is how my memory is. And I have prepared, I have done a lot of hands-on also, but the questions are like, I remember a few things about S3, and then I moved on to next topic, and I already forgot half of the things about S3. I never know what Glacier is used for. I don't remember because I'm not using it, and I'm just trying to hardly remember that.
Yeah,
So,
yep. It's a tough thing to do, right? So just try to remember a lot of things.
yeah.
Uh, like, how did you learn? I mean, what was the approach you were using to learn at that particular point in time?
I used the 3 courses on DevOps. I'm sorry, on Udemy. One
Mm-hmm.
is yours, that is to get knowledge on Kubernetes, how to deploy on GKE and all. And the next one is there is one course by one. There is a popular person on Udemy for these AWS certifications, Stephen or someone.
Stephen Mari.
I
Yep.
Yeah, I did course from him, and there is another Udemy course where it is purely for mock tests. There is
Okay,
a number of
practice
tests
test.
where you practice tests,
Yeah,
and I failed miserably in the test. After doing a lot of work, I miserably failed because I forgot most of them.
yeah.
So uh,
I'll probably share my experience, Shiva. Like the first time, I
hmm,
mean, I did the same certification, right? Solution architect certification twice. So the
hmm,
first attempt I made for that exam was, I think, around 2016, 2017 kind of a time frame. And
hmm,
it was pathetic. I mean, I would say it was one of the toughest things. I was doing this full day. So I was not doing, obviously I'm creating courses, so I don't go to a job. So that's the only, like if I start doing something, that's the only thing I would do for 12 hours a day, right? So for 12 hours a day, I had a book. I don't, like, it was the AWS Solution Architect. Like there's a official study guide. So I had that study
hmm,
guide, and I was studying from it for almost, I think, 4 weeks. Continuously, I studied. And the
hmm,
next day, I was supposed to go to the exam. And I went to a practice test. And that's the same thing which happened to me. I started seeing that there were a lot of enhancements made after the book was published. The book was published, I think, around like a year back to when I was studying. And in that 1 year, there were a lot of changes. And those changes were already incorporated into the certification exam. And yeah, it was a big pain, man. It was a really, really big pain. So I had to actually go through I did not want to cancel the exam. So actually, I had to do a night out. Uh, so I went through a couple of courses. I think Cloud Guru was one of the courses I went through at that particular point in time. And
hmm,
somehow I managed to barely scrape through. And I
hmm,
found that that experience really helped me. Like when I started really creating the certification courses again, that's when I picked up again. So earlier, my focus was on actually to do practical things, right? You talked about Kubernetes. So how do you deploy applications? How do you take a Java application, containerize it, deploy it to probably Elastic Beanstalk or ECS or EKS? So that was my initial goal, to get really, really hands-on experience on the cloud. But once I saw everybody wanted certifications, I also wanted to create a few certification courses. That's where I put renewed focus on certifications. The first one was difficult. I would say, uh, like the first two will be difficult, but once you do the first two, you'd see, you can recognize the pattern. Your brain will start seeing a lot of new things. I too am very,
hmm.
very bad at remembering things. I can't remember a lot of things. And somehow I think your brain gets adjusted. Once you do one, I mean, do all the things you can do, get through one, you would see that all the rest becomes very, very easy.
Nice, nice. On the other hand, recently, as I said, I got really impressed with Kubernetes, and I thought of doing a CKAD, Certified Kubernetes Application Developer course.
Hmm.
That is fantastic course because the certification, it doesn't test your remembering power. It is
Absolutely.
actual hands-on. It is
Exactly.
like you have access to the complete Kubernetes documentation,
Yeah.
and it is completely hands-on.
Yeah.
So for the last couple of weeks, I have been preparing for CKAD. But the thing is, in September 28, they are going to change the certification curriculum. There are
Exactly.
some new topics got added. So I thought of, okay, let's practice a little bit more and then attempt. But
Okay.
I really like that kind of thing because
I,
while I'm preparing for that certification, right? I really get good at, I'm able to write a manifest without looking up the documentation also. I'm able to write the commands and spin up the containers and all these things.
exactly.
I really become a little bit better while preparing for this CKAD.
Absolutely. I think that's the way most of the cloud certifications also will be heading. It's just that I mean, whatever we say, we are still in very, very early stages of the cloud. I mean, there is not sufficient
Hmm.
talent on the cloud available. The demand far, far is far, far more than the supply. And the only way we can
Hmm.
get supply these days is by having people getting certified, right? So that's the easiest way, at least to say, I made an effort, I know a little bit of the cloud, I
Hmm.
can take up a job, because the demand is huge and there are not a lot of people
Yeah.
with a lot of experience as well, right? So I
Yeah.
think certification courses are still starting off. I think within a couple of years, I think whatever you are saying should happen to at least all the developer, engineer, or anything related to network engineer, system engineer, all those certifications should be hands-on. Architect might be a little different, but at least most of the other service like certifications, I think should go hands-on, and that would happen. I think that would eventually happen. Like I can see a few changes happening with AWS. I think one of the recent certifications, I think system admin certifications, they have made it hands-on, and that's good. I think that's the same direction we would be heading pretty soon.
Yeah, that should be the way, because that is how we do day-to-day work. We don't remember
Exactly.
anything. We look up a lot of things and then we try out. It's more of a hands-on. That should be the way to test the knowledge of a person. It's not like how many things you
Absolutely.
can remember.
Absolutely. Shiva, like, how do I pronounce it? Caleb. Okay, I'll call it Caleb. Apologies if I got it wrong. Where's the best resource to learn Java backend development and DevOps? I know I'm putting you in a spot here, but Shiva, do you want to attempt the question first?
Yeah, sure. Actually, I get a lot of emails asking what is the good resources for learning Java or Spring Boot. So I get so many of such emails where what I did is I wrote a blog post in my in Siva Labs. You can find an article that says all the resources you need as a Java developer and Spring Boot developer. You can find all the very good high quality blogs which writes a lot of things about Java and all. Probably I can share the link with you so that you can put in the video where you can find most of the good, very high quality blogs related to Java. But on the DevOps side, I think you will be a better person to give resources, because I'm a newbie again, still into the DevOps world. I'm still picking it up. Um, yeah, I think in YouTube you can find there is one channel, Nana. I think she posts a lot of very useful videos, and she explains very well. And there is one channel called That DevOps Guy or something. He also posts a lot of videos. And there is one Victor or something. Recently I tweeted also. If you are into GitOps, DevOps, and GitOps side of things, his channel is amazing. There are so many useful content. Yeah.
Okay. Sure. Do you want to share these links with me? I'll add them to the description at the end of the video. So probably you can check it up tomorrow, and you should see a few links added in there. That's awesome. Now I will add in a little bit of self pitch, right? So like Java backend development, I would recommend Java Spring Boot courses that are offered by In 28 Minutes. If you do a search for GitHub In 28 Minutes Learn, I think you should be able to easily locate those courses. I think like Java backend, I think there are a lot of other courses as well, which are as good as In 28 Minutes. But I think one course which is really, really unique that we have created is the course that we created on DevOps. We have created a course where we did containers. I mean, basically you create containers, container orchestration with Docker, Kubernetes. And the other important part of DevOps is continuous integration, continuous deployment, probably something like Jenkins or Azure DevOps. These are the important tools that are used in this space. And infrastructure as code is also another important part, like Shiva was mentioning, right? Terraform, Ansible. So these are all the, like for me, like if you talk about DevOps today, these are the 6 most important DevOps tools, right? So Docker, Kubernetes, I would not say Jenkins. Jenkins is kind of on the way out. I would say Azure DevOps is doing very, very good. I would say between Terraform and Ansible, I would definitely choose Terraform over Ansible. And I think Pulumi is also doing really, really well. So the code that we create.
I was about to say about Pulumi. In recent projects, I have used Pulumi and AWS CDK. Still Terraform is the most popular infrastructure as code tool, but it has its limitations because it's a declarative and you cannot put dynamic logic and all. But whereas Pulumi, you can use TypeScript or Go language or anything, Java, even Java. I think it supports.
You can.
And AWS CDK also, where they are going to be big in near future because it have all the power of programming. And even you can create reusable components. You don't have to write the same copy paste or anything. You can create a reusable component libraries and then use it. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, so I think that's the way forward. Like for me, these are the 6. these are kind of the most important DevOps tools as of now. And what we have done is actually a couple of years back, we created a course called DevOps for Beginners, which includes all these tools, and we made use of all these tools on 3 different cloud platforms. So we actually used all these 6 on AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud, and we created a course on it. So I would definitely recommend you to check out that course. That would be a wonderful thing. However, a warning, the Pulumi is more of a recent, I mean, I would not say very, very recent. I think in the last 1 year, it started getting really, really popular. I think AWS CDK is also another thing which takes a kind of a very different approach, right? Instead of going declarative, you'd come back to programming. So you'd want the reusable construct which come from programming for infrastructure as code. So yeah, that's my that's my sales pitch. Shiva, back to you now.
Yeah, also talking about the Java backend resources, I think you have a lot of videos on Java development, clean code, and
Right.
testing, Marketo on your channel. Yeah, because my wife also tried to become a Java developer. She was doing something else before that, and then I referred to your channel, and then she said there are a lot of useful videos, like there are clean code videos, there are testing, especially for a beginner testing. There are so many things,
Yeah,
JUnit, Marketo, and yeah,
exactly.
you have a lot of content also.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when I started off with uh, going full time, one of my initial goals was to have at least like tools which are used 80% of the time, right? So most of the projects make use of Spring Boot, JUnit, Mockito. I think these are kind of standard across the thing. So we decided, okay, I thought, okay, let's create courses around all of them. Some of them are not really successful courses, but we do have content. So there is a lot of
Mhm.
content around all the areas related to Java and Spring Boot development.
Yeah.
Cool.
And also
And
one
I
more thing I
forgot to talk
noticed.
about your book, right? You also have a book on Spring Boot
Yeah.
that you wrote for Apple.
Yeah, yeah, Apress, yeah. So the last book I wrote is for beginning Spring Boot 2 with Apress publisher. That is sometimes you write few books and you feel only some books are really good, that you at least you like. Okay, you feel really that is good. So I feel like that with Spring Boot 2 book, because
Awesome.
I not only explained from the point of view of using Spring Boot, I also explain how it works behind the scenes. So I really like the book, at
Okay.
least.
Shiva, can you also include the link to that book in the links you would send me? I will include
Yeah,
it in the
sure,
description of the video.
sure.
Cool, cool. So,
Actually, there is a new version coming on. I am not writing it because these days I don't have time to write a new version of it. One of my friend, he is going to pick it up, and there is a book planned for Spring Boot 3.
okay.
It is going to start soon.
Yeah, I think Spring Boot 3, the first, probably the milestone version is expected early 2022. I guess
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I think that's the time frame we are looking at. But do you have any, we already talked about the fact that you are not really interested in Spring Boot anymore, but do you have any expectations on what Spring Boot 3 will have? I mean, I can't think of anything groundbreaking coming in Spring Boot 3.
I think the major one would be Spring Native only, because Spring Boot now is in a catch-up mode.
Yeah,
Because all other things are very much stabilized and they are well ahead of the game. But when it comes to Spring Native, GRAL VM support, they are very much behind Quarkus or Micronaut, at least my point of view. I think they are going to put more focus on that Spring Native. The rest of the
okay.
things are like a pretty standardized and very much standardized. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think yeah, I think container orchestration, and like the performance of how fast you can build your application, I think that's where the focus would be, right? So it's in how fast you can create a container and how fast you can deploy it, making that
Yeah.
faster and making the entire thing compatible with Kubernetes, even maybe even add more hooks in.
Yeah, one more thing I noticed in the recent times is application development is kind of very mature now. Like if you pick it up, like a
Yeah,
Spring Boot. you have all the infrastructure ready. You don't have to write properties reader or anything like that. Everything is already built in, and monitoring capabilities is already being provided by Spring Boot. Even the same is the case for Micronaut or Quarkus. So it is application development is all you have to do is write business logic,
Exactly.
which is not it's pretty much standardized. The
Absolutely.
challenging part is becoming like how do you operate it and how do you take it to production with a minimal effort. Now I see
Exactly.
there are tools like Scaffold, which helps during the development time. You don't have to create container and then create the image and then run and then test. You as you just develop and then it automatically deploys and you can see it in the real time. Similarly, there is a Decorate tool where you don't have to write the manifest and all by hand. It will automatically generate. So there are tools evolving in this space also. So I think the focus will be on how do you take your application and take it to production. That is where it is going to enhance it. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think I exactly have the same opinion. Like I've created a number of Spring Boot courses, around 15 of them, and hardly anything changes in the last 2 years. I mean, I would say those courses are as up to date as they can be. I mean, they might be using probably 2.0.m1, but functionally nothing has really changed, right? They are exactly the same way. And today, if I'm developing something, I would exactly do the same way. And that's exactly, I mean, whether you're writing unit tests, I mean, even like I think even on the like framework side, React, Angular, like front end side, right? So I think there is a lot of stabilization that came in the last few years. I don't know if there are better ways of improving those kind of things, right?
Yeah, exactly. As you said, even in fact, in one of my previous project, we started with when Spring Boot was around 2.1 or something like that. And then recently we simply I went to pom.xml and I updated the version. Everything is
Exactly.
working fine. Nothing
Exactly.
changed.
Exactly.
And
Eh,
it is even hard to keep a track of minor changes. For example, there is a lot of change in the way it reads application properties configuration. Now, Spring Boot is made a little bit more Kubernetes supportive, like the way you read config maps and secret. There is a lot of
Right.
improvement in it. But still, it is backward compatible, and your application is going to work as it is. You just improve the version number, and 90% of the time, it just works out of the box.
Exactly. I think, uh, I mean, uh, for major part of it, I think Spring does a very, very good job with backward compatibility. There were, I
Yeah.
think, very minor things which were not backward compatible in 2.5, but I think other than that, I think it's like most of the times backward compatibility is
Yeah.
something which is like maintained very, very well. Shiva, you were talking about Micronaut Quarkus, right? So are you working
Hmm.
on any applications which are built with Micronaut and Quarkus? How do you see in comparison with Spring Boot? Where do you see them
Yeah.
going, let's say a year, couple of years down the line?
Okay, so I am again just I thought I got curious about Micronaut and Quarkus. I haven't fully explored what it is going to provide, what currently we are not getting out of Spring Boot, but at a first glance, the important thing is it is like all this what do you say runtime reflection and everything is moved to build stage where there is no runtime discovery or anything like that. All that is waved into
Exactly.
build time. So what happens is because of that, runtime footprint is low, will be low, and it is going to be a real contender for a serverless application. Earlier,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
using Java for serverless is not something I would suggest because by the time you bootstrap all your JVM and everything, Node.js app could have completed the whole thing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but because of this Graal VM and then these improvements, now we could really consider using Java for serverless applications as well. In addition to
Absolutely.
that, if you are operating at a large scale, like thousands of containers, and if you are working on, say, using public cloud platform, billing, you need to consider billing. Whereas a typical Spring Boot non-native application, it takes a lot of memory. Even a small, simple POC It takes almost 700 MB at times, 1 GB or something memory. Whereas you
Absolutely.
can take a Micronaut application or Quarkus, all it takes is less than 100 or 200 MB, even if you are using database and all those things.
Yeah.
So there is
Yeah.
a huge improvement there. And in addition to that, what I really loved about Quarkus is uh, it's like finally we Java developers got this same heart reloading capability what JavaScript people are having for ages. You write the code and it automatically reloads and you can immediately see it. You don't have to even trigger the pipe build, or you don't have to do anything. Just write it and then save. It automatically reloading. That's a huge productivity increase.
Absolutely.
Another thing, yeah, and the Quarkus is kind of designed to operate in a containerized environment.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I'm really interested. Once I have time, that is what I'm going to explore a little bit more in detail.
Okay. Okay. So are you using them in any of your production applications right now?
No,
Okay.
currently now I am working on a .NET based application.
Okay.
Maybe
Okay.
meanwhile it's a personal interest. Out of personal interest, I am learning them. Uh, yeah,
That's pretty interesting. You like I did not think that would be something you would be doing .NET.
actually, here, yeah, I don't want to be the person who is bashing .NET on live. But coming from a Java background with Spring Boot, spoiled with Spring Boot, just add a starter and you have everything. .NET, it's from the language point of view, it is really as good as Kotlin. If you
Okay.
even compare language
Okay.
features, it is really as good as Kotlin. You have
Okay.
all the
Awesome.
features supported by Kotlin. Yeah. But the tooling, I personally feel Java is a lot better. I last week I tweeted this, and yeah, there are so many people that supports me, and there are few people that doesn't
Yeah,
agree with
it's
me.
the kind of
It's
arguments we
expected.
developers like having.
Yeah,
Yeah, my
it
tool
is
is better than
expected.
yours always.
Yeah. Again, maybe it is depending on. I have been working with Java and all these environments for 15 years. Obviously, I am more familiar, and now I am switching to .NET, and then I find few things not quite well.
Yeah.
It is understandable. It's all personal preferences. There is no
Absolutely. I think,
one
yeah,
right.
I think that's something which, I mean, I think it's like any other field, right? You switch a job, definitely you will be thinking about what are the advantages of the previous job, what are the disadvantages of the uh, current.
Yeah.
I mean, what you are gaining and what you are losing. That's kind of the conversation you'll always have whenever there is a change, and that's kind of natural, right? That's how we are. That's how
Yeah.
people are in general.
Actually, after a certain time, you don't really attach yourself with a particular programming language. And when I see C Sharp and Kotlin, to be
Okay.
honest, I took only 2 or 3 hours to glance through C Sharp syntax and everything. It's what I have done is in my mind, okay, map concept through concept. Okay, here
Exactly.
you call
Exactly.
seal classes, it is a final there. You call
Absolutely.
attributes here, it is annotations there. You just map the concepts,
Yeah.
and the rest of the
Yep.
things
I
are
can.
same.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. That's great to hear, Shiva. Shiva, any questions that you have to me? Do you want to ask?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions for you.
Awesome.
How do you learn so many cloud concepts? How many hours you have in a day?
Yeah, I think this is the conversation that we were having earlier as well, right? So
Yeah.
right now, the biggest advantage I have is that this is all that I do, right? So I don't like at least for the last couple of years, I'm not doing any jobs, or I completely stopped doing any consulting as well. So the only thing I work on right now, at least I would say, like right now, right? It might change later, but for now, all that I do is create content. And I also have a few members in the team, like Ravi is one of them, and there is other like these guys are really really expert. They do consulting on DevOps, on cloud, and these guys help me learn, right? So I mean, what I've discovered is um, when I like worked with Spring Boot, Java, I really had experience developing production applications, right? So that's what is lacking right now. So if I'm completely dedicated to course creation, then that aspect would be missing from my courses, and that's something I did not want to lose at all. And that's where I brought in like a couple of guys who, like Ravi is one of them. Like he's like, I'm partnering with him for all the Google Cloud courses. There are a couple of other guys I'm partnering with on AWS and Azure courses as well. So these guys are my eyes and ears in the industry, right? So they help me like decide all the courses. They help me learn very, very fast. So they help tell me, hey, Ranga, this is not the way to learn. This is the way to learn. So that's the approach I use. And anywhere you see, like this is my office apartment, which I'm in right now, you would see 100 books, like at least 100, 150 books, at least. So that's another thing which I do. And also, I think there is a lot of content which is on YouTube, which is awesome, right? Really, really. I mean, finding stuff on YouTube is very, very difficult because they are not things you would search for and you would get. But the best content on YouTube is mostly hidden. Like it's very, very difficult to find. It will have 20 views, 30 views, 40 views. Somehow I have a knack of picking up the right one to learn from as well. So I think those are the important things. Obviously, we all have a mind block, right? I mean, even I have that. Learning is not easy. I mean, anything that involves change, anything that makes you rethink something you already know, it's not easy. Somehow I have to force myself to do that because that's my job. I mean, I don't have an alternative. Let's put it that way. It's not like I don't learn. I have no content to create, right? So that also maybe forces me to learn faster.
So usually one challenge that I face is many times out of interest, not because of my project needs or anything. I try to learn few things, but with that approach, I can go so far only because
Exactly.
I'll try to create imaginary scenarios, imaginary application needs, and then I try to implement that. That's how I learn. But there is a point where you cannot go beyond certain things,
Exactly.
where you get into a situation. Usually you find in real projects you get weird
Absolutely.
kind of requirements, very weird requirements. You don't get them while doing POCs or anything.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
yeah, it's a
Yeah, I
very
think that's the
challenging when
difficult
you
part,
learn.
right? Yeah, that's
Yeah.
something which I discovered very, very early. So 2017 end, that's when I discovered, okay, this is not going to work. There are expectations from people as well. I mean, I have like successful courses. I don't want to lose that. I mean, there's a brand that Invented stands for. I don't want to lose that. And that's where I thought a lot, like how do I really bring the cloud and DevOps experience into our courses, right? So that's very, very important. The real-time experience of using something in a project is completely different. It's not equal to learning at all, right? I mean, I can sit in this room, try and learn for years. It's not the same as implementing something and taking the project live to production. That experience is completely different. And
Yeah.
yeah, and that's what I try to add in through all the team that I have, right? So it's tough, but we spend a lot of time to get that in.
Yeah. Cool.
Awesome. Anything else, Shiva, that you want to talk about?
Mm, yeah, that's all for now.
Awesome. Shiva, as usual, I think we wanted to do this last time, right? I think it was in 2018 when I started this. I wanted to have an interview with you. And
Yeah.
finally, in 2021, after 3 years, we were able to bring you online. Thanks a lot for spending time here. Like I'm sure the expertise you shared would be useful to a lot of young developers who are out there, right? It's not just about what tools, all these are important, but what is really, really important is the quality of the code that you write, readability, testability,
Yeah.
maintainability of the code that you write. And we also talked about a lot of different aspects related to DevOps and the cloud as well. Thank you, actually. Thanks a lot for coming in. I'm sure it would have been a great learning experience. If you like, for people who are watching this, if you have any questions for Shiva, do post them in the comments, and I'll have maybe like in future probably we can bring Shiva in again to have a conversation with him again. I hope you all had a nice day. Shiva, thanks a lot for coming in here.
Thanks, Ranga. Thanks a lot for inviting me, and we had a great conversation. We
Yeah.
shared our views, and it's a pleasant conversation. Yeah.
Thank you, Shiva. I mean, if you think you are an expert on some of the fields and if you would want to be part of this, do reach out to me on LinkedIn and let me know. And yeah, if everything works out, you can be here and we can have a discussion here as well. Thanks a lot, Shiva, for being here, and I'll see you again, probably very shortly again. Thank you.
Sure. Sure. Thank you.